And today, my message is entitled Fear Free. Fear Free. And so fear has an amazing ability to help you in the briefest of moments during survival situations. Did you guys know that? So fear is not completely 100% bad. There are moments where fear has a benefit to you. In a survival situation where a big bear comes out of the woods, you have the one person who's not afraid that says, "Oh, it's so cuddly, come here," right? And wants to hug the bear, and then he gets eaten by the bear, right? So fear in that situation might be the wise decision, right? The other guy says, nope. And he runs away, right? Or assumes the fetal position. That's my favorite one, right? You just assume the fetal position and hope that the bear thinks you're cuter than him, right? And leaves you alone. So in briefest of moments, fear can be a benefit to you. It allows you to enact what's called the fight or flight mechanism, a survival mechanism that does a lot of things physically to you. It allows basically everything to be processed through a survival mechanism. Okay, so everything in your body begins to shut down and divert all power to survival mechanisms, okay? And so to give you an illustration that all of you will clearly understand that are nerds, Star Trek. So if you ever watch Star Trek, right, every single episode of Star Trek or every movie in Star Trek, it's always divert all power to the forward shields, right? Right, they put all the power on the forward shields, and they have to do that every. You think they would just start that way, right? They always end up having to do it anyways. So you put all. So your survival mechanism, fear, is you putting all your power, diverting every bit of energy into your survival. Okay, so your body releases things like adrenaline, which aids in strength, right? How many of you guys have heard about like mothers whose children were trapped in cars and they picked up the car? You ever heard about that? Right? I do it every weekend. Just pick up the car for extra exercise. Right? That's why I wear that bracelet. That's why I wear that. It's just normal. It's just every day. It's part of my life. It's boring. But you have this amazing ability. Adrenaline allows your muscles to work at maximum capacity, the maximum available capacity that can. But the problem with adrenaline, the problem with living that way, is that there are negative side effects to that fear. It is only meant for short bursts of power. We talked about that last week, right? Like nitro on an engine, right? It'll give you a quick burst of power, and then it blows up your engine if you use it too much. And so fear does the same thing as a lot of other emotions, okay? So fear actually releases and secretes adrenaline from your adrenal glands. Your blood flow decreases during a fearing moment to your brain's frontal lobe. Did you know that? So when you are afraid, your blood flow reduces up here in the frontal lobe area, which is responsible for logical thinking. Okay, it's the center of your brain responsible for thinking clearly and rational. Okay, it's the part that's for planning and deeper thought processes. Okay, and so what it does is it diverts brain from your part of your brain that plans things out and puts it to the more animalistic side of you. Right? You're such an animal. You're such an animal. Right? And diverts it over to the animalistic side that just says survive, run away, fight, right? All of those basic primal instincts that you have to survive like an animal, okay? So like an animal trying to avoid being eaten by predators, all your body's resources get divided to one goal: stay alive, right? Your heart rate actually increases, your blood pressure increases, you breathe faster, your muscles tense up, your pupils dilate so you can see even more clearly the threat. So there's all these physical characteristics that come from being afraid, okay, that come from fear. And we live in this weird society where we like to, on purpose be afraid, right? Someone's like, oh, let's watch a scary movie. I just want to be afraid. I guess I don't get that because I don't watch scary movies. Any of you guys like really big scary movie people? It's cool if you are. I don't understand it, but yeah, so some of you guys, you're like, yeah, just scare me and make my adrenal glands go crazy. Oh yeah, it's go nuts. It's go nuts. I don't even know where the adrenal gland is. I'm just making that up. On top of the kid. Oh, it's way over there. See, I'm way off. I just know when you're sick and you feel right here, you're like, oh, your glands are swollen. So I just assume they're all in the same spot. Right? Glands are swollen, right? I got good glands today, right? Yeah, so they come off your kidney. That's right. I knew that. I knew that. Whatever. All right. So, but you don't want to tense up. So if any of you guys live in fear, it causes your body to constantly state of tension. So if you're constantly in a state of tension, if you're constantly worrying about your blood pressure and your high heart rate and all that, you might be living in a situation where you are constantly living in fear. And your body is in survival mode, okay? Which means that there are some consequences to that, all right? And let me explain to you that the church gets this situation wrong. Okay? And even I myself have evolved my position on what fear means and how to overcome fear. So let me tell you a story about a time when I got my advice wrong. I was still right about the situation, but my advice wasn't quite on. And I'm going to reverse my advice and tell you how I've matured in this area. Okay, but there was this once upon a time in Yukon, my mom had a house. And she lived alone. Okay? Yeah, she's always like, great, he's telling a story about me again. My mom's got some good stories. I have to tell them, okay? I told just as many when you didn't come to church here, by the way. So, yeah, it's true. So at least now I'm doing it face-to-face, not behind your back, so it makes me feel better. But she knows what story I'm telling. So she was home, and I was supposed to come over. So she knew I was supposed to come over, all right? This was already predetermined. I was coming over. So I go, and I do what anybody is supposed to do, right? You knock and the door shall be open, right? But the door did not open. So I rang the doorbell. Nothing. Ring, 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 bang, 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 bang. And I'm obnoxious, right? You guys, if you spend any time with me, you know that if I'm going to be obnoxious, I'm going to go 100%. I don't do anything halfway. I don't do anything mediocre. I'm going all the way. So I'm like, bang, 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 ding, ding, bang, 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 ding, ding, bang, 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 brum, bum, 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 I'm playing drums. Bum, and I just won't. I almost broke my emoji. Chia pet that's going to be furry by the end of this service, or by the end of the series. So I'm banging away, right, just having a good old time. She can't hear me. Why? Because she is like playing a movie, and she is just into it, right? I thought, and you guys, ladies, come on, some of you guys are just like men. You get so hyper-focused. So she's just watching this movie. Boom, 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 boom. The house is earthquaking. And so I'm like, she's not opening the door. It's locked, right? So I'm like, oh. So I go around the back, okay? I go around the back, and I go through the fence, and I come in the sliding glass door. I open up the sliding glass door, and as soon as I open it and kind of stick my head in there, you think that I think that I'm Superman? That woman flew, okay? She was sitting on the couch. I promise, you ever scare a cat and watch it just like jump 10 feet in the air and flip, okay? She was like, she ninja flipped. She's sitting on the couch. I promise, I'm not even like pastor storytelling this. And she just goes, whoa, over the back of the couch and dives behind the couch. Like gunfire was incoming, okay? She just like, whoa, over the couch and just down. And one leap, yeah? So leaping tall buildings in a single bound, okay? And she does, and she just adds, and at the same time, in unison, is the scream, right? I don't know if that was the burst of power, like she jettisoned out of, and it just flung her back over the couch. And so after I stopped being amazed at the limber agility that my mom possessed, she I'm being murdered. She just knew that was it. It was over. Here comes the intruder. She is now murdered. It's over, right? She's already relinquished the idea of this is how it's going to happen. She's played out the whole scenario and given up, right? Okay? And so the head comes up, and I went, Mom, where's your faith? And she goes, oh. I was like, it's just me. You won't open the door. I didn't hear you. Maybe if your TV didn't sound like a jet engine. It was a good movie. It was worth it. So she was afraid, and so my response to that was, where's your faith? And so I don't know if you've heard that before, but a lot of people may have told you before that fear, the way to defeat fear is to have faith. The reason why you are afraid is because you don't have enough faith. And if you just had more faith, then clearly you would not be afraid. And perhaps that's the mentality that you have, is that when you are afraid, it means you lack faith. And what I've come to find out is that the Bible is right 100% of the time, and I am wrong 100% of the time when I disagree with it, okay? It just works that way. And the older I get and the more I experience life, the more I evolve my position to realize that every time I'm like, well, I just might not understand that scripture. That can't be right. It usually is. And it's not as complicated as I want to make it out to be. All right? And so there's this interesting thing about fear and emotions in general, okay? So first of all, I'll get to what really is the root of fear and how to overcome fear. But emotions themselves, I want to set the tone for what emotions are, because we live in a false perception of what emotions mean. A lot of us are driven and are controlled by our emotions, some more than others. But there's something about the atmosphere of emotions, okay? There are breeding grounds for atmospheres of emotions, and there are grounds that don't allow them to grow, okay? And so one of the things you have to understand about emotions is emotions exist in an atmosphere of lies. Emotions exist in an atmospheres of lies, and emotions cannot function in atmospheres of truth. Okay? Truth is detrimental to emotions, and lies are extremely important for emotions to be in control. Let me ask you something. Have you ever thought that somebody was upset at you, and it turned out they were just having a bad day and it had nothing to do with you? Right? And so your emotions reacted before you knew the truth, and you were like, oh, they're upset at me, and right? And so what happens is that the only way that emotion has an opportunity to take root is if you allow it to function in an atmosphere of lies. And what I mean by lies is you have no basis of reality of whether that feeling is true or not yet, do you? You just know the person is acting cranky or grumpy or irritable or whatever, and you assume that there is a possibility that it's because of you, right? I mean, because you're going on past mistakes and you know that you do it every single week, right? So it's obviously... It doesn't even matter if you have a history of doing that to that person. If that person is upset, you're like, did I? Have you ever done that where you're like, hey, did I do something? Are you upset at me? And they're like, no, not at all. And you're like, whoo, right? But there are other times where you say nothing, where you just go, I think they may be upset at me. I think I might have done something wrong. And so you camp out in an atmosphere of lies. And lies are anything that are not based in reality. So until you know the truth, you are operating in an atmosphere of lies, regardless of the truth. You are assuming something that you have no knowledge of or information pertaining to, so it is clearly make believe. You don't know that person is upset at you. You don't know if they're upset in general. You just know you're reacting to an emotion and you're having an emotional reaction. So emotions only exist in a place of lies, but they are exposed and defeated in a place of truth. So when you go to that person and you say to them, are you upset at me? And they're like, no, I just got off the phone with the credit card company. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm off the hook. I'm good. You good? And then all of a sudden that person's like, what do I do? And they seek your counsel, and you have a good powwow, and everything's fine. But what happens is when you allow that emotion to have a seat in a place of lies, it allows it to grow and stir and fester and get deeper. And then you start reading into everything, right? Well, they were upset at me. I think they were upset at me. And then everything they do is, you start checking real subtle. You don't want to confront them, so you just start checking real subtle, right? You're like, hey, and they're like, hey. And you're like, ooh, that wasn't a very nice hey. They are upset at me. And you start reading into everything that happens and asking yourself if it goes with what you're thinking already, what your emotions are already saying, right? We all do it. We're all guilty of it, okay? And I know the guys are sitting there going, yeah, no, that's the ladies right there, okay? Guys, you do it too. We do it too. We just don't cry about it. We get all mad about it. We huff and puff. Oh, yeah, you're going to be rude to me. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care at all. I don't care, man. I don't care. Right? That's what guys do, right? The girl's like, I just care. I just care so much. This hurt my feelings. Right? And the guys are like, I don't got no feelings. I don't got no feelings. I don't care. I don't care. Let him be cranky. That's fine. It's fine. I didn't do nothing. Right? It's his problem, right? That's what we do. And so we have different ways of expressing false emotions that are not based in reality. Instead of letting our spirit take over to where our spirit should say, what should say. See, Jesus came and he said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. There is something powerful about exposing lies and living in truth that sets you free from emotional control. Now, here's the truth. Maybe they are upset at you, right? That may be the truth. Maybe you did something wrong. But when you walk up to someone and you say, are you upset at me? And their response is, yes. And then your response is, why? And their response is, right? And then your response should be, okay, right? And then here's one, I'm sorry. And then they say, are you really sorry? This is only when the wife is saying it to the husband, right? are you really sorry, right? And the husband just wants to run, right? And he says, yes. And then it's all better. Wow. That's hard, right? That's tough. See, you can only fix emotional control when you're honest, when you have a honest conversation, when you are truthful about what you are going through. And see, what we want to do is we want to hide our emotions. We don't want anybody to know that we're living in emotional control. And the reason is because the root is that we're afraid. We're afraid that person is upset at us. We're afraid of the bad guy that walked in our back room. We're afraid that if we speak out or are vulnerable, that somebody will not reciprocate our emotions. Okay, we are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid, and we've turned our society into a society that glorifies being afraid of things, okay? I'm not telling you don't go watch scary movies. That's not where I'm going with this, okay? I'm just saying that as a culture, what we've done is rather than overcome fear, we've just kind of accepted it as a society and said, it's good, let's be afraid. And so we teach fear. We cultivate fear. We move towards fear, and we wonder why we're stressed out. Our muscles are always tense. Our blood pressure is always up. We're afraid that if we don't do our jobs right, we're going to lose our job. We're afraid that person really doesn't love us. We're afraid if we upset them that they're going to leave us. We're afraid of so many different things. We're afraid we're not going to have enough money at the end of the month. We're afraid of everything. We let fear rule our lives. The reason why emotions have control of you is because you have given control over to fear. It is the root of everything. You are anxious. You are stressed. It is because ultimately you are afraid. You are afraid your husband doesn't love you. You are afraid it's going to keep going wrong. You're afraid that your spouse doesn't care. You're afraid if you're real and you give 100%, the other person won't reciprocate it. That's what you're afraid of. You're afraid to stand up and tell someone about Jesus because they may tell you you're an idiot. You're afraid to invite them to church. We live in a spirit of fear. We're afraid to confront someone lest they get really, really angry at us over something. So we make our decisions and we act according to our fears, which robs us of ever having truth. See, Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to him. No one comes to the Father except through him. And we can never introduce anybody to the truth as long as we are using lies to fuel us. So, John 1 or 1 John 4:16 through 18 says this. God is love. Whoever lives and loves lives in God, and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world we are like Jesus. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Say, drives out fear. Because fear has something to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So let's break this down just for a minute. We understand one thing first, that God is love, right? He doesn't love, he is love. It is his DNA. It is who he is. He is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God. Okay? Now, does it say whoever loves lives in God? It says something very specific. Whoever lives in love lives in God. Let me give you a fancy word for lives in love. Ready? Abide. Whoever abides. Okay, that is the fancy way. So if you want to be, I abide. Okay? And me and John had a conversation a couple of weeks ago where he said he was reading a book that was talking about abiding in Jesus. Abiding in Jesus. And when he said that to me, he didn't even explain the whole book. He just said, it's really got me. But something about that phrase at that moment spoke to my spirit and just registered something in my spirit. And I began to think about this term, abide. And so I'm going to say it in a simple term, lives in. Okay? So God, this says, whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, that we have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world, we are like Jesus. So we are supposed to be like Jesus. There is no fear in love. So we learn first that the atmosphere of love has no fear. So the first thing to becoming fear-free is to exist and live in an atmosphere of love. Because in love, there can be no fear. Now, here's the problem. Maybe you already brought fear in. So while there is no new fear in love, you brought some with you because it already pre-existed that, okay? So we got a pre-existing condition here, all right, that is not included in the love clause of your love healthcare, okay? And I owned a healthcare company. That's the best I got today, okay? There is no fear in love. So we know that while we are in love, there is not going to be fear from real love. So if your love of somebody is stirring up fear, you don't really love them yet, okay? You haven't really existed in love. Let me give you an example. If you are a parent in here and your child stepped in front of a moving vehicle in the middle of the road, is there any fear in your body about diving and shoving them out of the way that car may hit you? In that moment, love, complete and whole, takes over, and the only thought in your head is, save the one I love, right? There is no time for fear to exist where love is perfected, okay? Where love exists fully. So if you are still fearful in someone you love, you have not given yourself over to full love, okay? So that's why the next part of this verse is so powerful. But perfect love, what kind of love? Perfect love. Not just any love, not kind of half love, not worldly love. Perfect love drives out fear. So if you showed up in a loving environment, there is no fear in a loving environment. But see, John goes a little further here and says not only does loving environment not have fear, but if you have perfect love, if you really take it to the next level and perfect that love, it actually drives out the fear that was there before. So you have the ability to cast out fear, to get rid of fear in your life by perfecting love, not by perfecting your faith. Not by growing your faith. So the mistake is that the enemy wants us to believe that we just don't have enough faith, which makes us feel sad about our own belief system, when it really has nothing to do with faith. It has everything to do with love. See, in love, there is no fear, but perfect love drives out all fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. So John is trying to tell us, as long as we live in fear, you will never be perfect in love. So not only does love have the ability to cast out fear, but fear has the ability to rob you of perfect love. So when you live in fear, you're never going to have perfect love. You cannot have them in the same room at the same time, existing in the same person. It can't happen. So if you are not working in perfect love, it means that there's probably some root somewhere in your life that has some small fear. Okay? Now you might say, I'm a pretty brave person, right? Right? How many of you guys in here or girls in here, right? If someone's like afraid of something, you're like, suck it up, buttercup. Right? I know at least a few of you. I've heard it before, right? It's so funny because yesterday this light on this side over here that illuminates the nice side of my face was the bulb went out, okay? And so I had to climb up a ladder to try to change the bulb, but I didn't have a bulb for this, and there was no time to order one. And so I'm up on the top of the ladder changing this bulb, and it's not very high. So I get on a regular 6-foot ladder, and I get on the very top step, right? Some of you are like, right? So I'm 6 feet off the ground. I know that's a lot for me. I get it, okay? I get it. 6 feet is tall. All right. But I get up on the top step, and I'm checking the bulb and everything. And I realize I don't have a spare bulb. I can't go get one. It has to be ordered. So there's nowhere for me to go get one except in the back of the room where we have a main one for the sanctuary. There is a spare bulb. That one is significantly higher. So I have to get out a stage platform, and I set that down. And if some of you were here early, you would have seen it. And then there was a 5-foot scaffold that goes on top of the platform. So I have a platform, a 5-foot scaffold, and then I put the 6-foot ladder on top of that. And I climbed that one to the very tippy top, okay? So if you have been in here and seen me on a ladder and were like, no, sir, I've heard that 3 times this week, you would have been scared to death watching me stand on a jerry-rigged, tall platform that was way high up in the sky and rocked like this every time you took a step up, okay? Right? I got good balance, all right? I was a surfer. I'm fine, okay? So, yeah, if I'm going to go anyway, I'm telling you what. So in that moment, though, when you're on the top of that thing, you cannot give in to fear, can you? I can't look down and be like, oh, my gosh, right? Because my muscles will tense up. My heart will start beating faster. Everything in me will lock up, and I won't be as agile and limber and able to survive that in case I do take a tumble, right? Okay? And so, most of you guys know if you get in a car wreck and there's a child in the car that's sleeping, the child ends up kind of injury-free, and the adult is the one with all of the problems, right? Why is that? Because they say when you go to make the impact, don't tense up, right? So you tense up right before impact, and that's what causes all of the injuries and muscle pulls and strains and sprains. And the kid in the back seat that was sleeping is just like, right? See, just like that, right? And they're fine because they just kind of go with the flow, right? And they go with the flow, and they're perfectly fine. So that fear inside of you actually makes you more injury prone by giving in to fear. So by letting go of fear and climbing that ladder, I'm less likely to get hurt even if the outcome is I fall. The reality is giving into fear only helps to create. It is a self-creating prophecy, right? So 2 Timothy 1:7 says this, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Now, the word here for power is a word from the Greek called dunamis. It's called dunamis, which means power. But it is the root word in the English language for dynamite. Okay? So dynamite comes from dunamis. Okay? D-Y, or D-U-N-A-M-I-S. So dynamite, dunamis, is our root word where we get dynamite. It means power. But it's not just normal power. It is extreme power. It is overloading power. It is expansive power. And in fact, in the Bible, it's used over 120 times in the New Testament alone. And many of those 120 times refers to the miracle working power that Jesus was performing. When it said he had power over the demons, when he had power over sickness and disease, it used the word dunamis. When it said that you will receive power on high, when Jesus said that the Holy Spirit would show up and you would receive power on high, it said you will receive dunamis, dynamite-like power. And here's the reason why a lot of us live in fear, is because we don't realize that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but he is giving us a dynamite, explosive, miracle working power in our life that fear has no control over. Nothing. Oh, you can clap about that. Some of you don't believe it yet. And it says this, but he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. See, what did I say before? When you operate in fear, here's what happens. It's amazing. The Bible knew before science knew thousands of years ago. Okay, I'm not going to get deep in science. We'll save that for the science series again. But here's where we go. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. We just learned something by science. Living in fear robs you of a sound mind. It moves the blood away from the frontal part of your brain, which is the part you use for logical thinking. Or another way to say that is a sound mind. It is the part that is used to plan for your future. When you go into survival mode, all of your future goals, all of the thoughts that are leading towards your future are stopped. Okay, nothing about what you want to see a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years, all those plans, all those thoughts you have about hope for your future are gone. Your brain blocks all those and diverts all power to the moment. So if you are the type of person that lives moment to moment, that can't see past tomorrow, that just is in a fog about today, you might be living in fear. You might be living in fear. And living in fear is literally creating the atmosphere that you're in. And if you're wondering what's going to happen tomorrow, the reason why you don't know is because you're afraid of it. And if you would stop being afraid of it for 1 second, your mind would clear. Because God did not give you a spirit of fear. He gave you a spirit of a sound mind. And the two, quite literally, physically, biologically, cannot exist at the same time. They cannot exist together. Fear robs you of a sound mind, and a sound mind robs your body of fear. So the key is to understand that you were created with power, that you were created with the miracle working power of Jesus in your life. Dynamite. You are dynamite. That love drives out all fear, and that when you get rid of fear, your mind will clear. Some of you need to understand that the reason why you can't seem to figure out how to get head from tails and up and down is because you get trapped in fear, and it robs you of that ability to see the right path. And that's one of the reasons why I felt like this series is so important, is that there's so many times that so many people come to me and they're like, I don't understand what to do. And I listen to it, and for me, I'm not being big-headed or anything like that. For me, I hear their story, and it's like, oh, you just do A. Like, it seems really logical to me. And if you've ever counseled anybody that is upset about something, they're emotional in it, and they tell you their situation, and you're like, this is really obvious what the answer is. Like, if you've ever been there, and I think all of us have, we've counseled someone that was upset, and the answer seemed, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And you're like, seriously? Like, it's obvious. I'm wondering if I should throw myself in the shark tank and get eaten by sharks, or if I should just take the job for $100,000 a year. You're kidding, right? No, I don't know what to do. I'm teaching you men good advice. right? Say nothing. Say nothing. Run. Fight or flight. Okay, get out of that, right? And so it's like, it seems like that just seems really logical, right? You've been in situations where it doesn't make sense. But what we don't understand is that that person is engaging in fear. And when they've allowed fear to have a root in their life, logic has been shut down. Their brain is bleeding in the wrong places, okay? And so they have no ability to make rational decisions. And so the question is not to give someone sound advice in that moment, because the sound advice will not be sound advice to them. So you are wasting your breath to try to teach someone the right way when they're in the middle of fear. The correct answer is to love them out of fear. It's to get them in an environment where they calm down, where they're loved, where they feel safe, and they feel empowered by the Holy Spirit that they're capable of overcoming any situation that they're going through. And when you feel like that, the fear diminishes and the logic comes back. Does that make sense? So here's the key, though. So here's what happens. What happens is that we're believers, okay? We follow Jesus. And I'm going to close here real soon, but we follow Jesus. And some of us are so good at living happy for Jesus. We are so good at being Christ followers when life is happy. When everything's going good, we are great Christians. We are great Christ followers. We love to hang out with Jesus. We love to praise God and come into the house of God and praise God. God, my job's great, and my kids are great, and my spouse is great, and my lawn looks good, right? Everything's great, and we are so good. Hear me. We are so good at living happy for Jesus. And when something bad happens, it tears us down. And so I want to say something to you today. It doesn't really matter about happy or sad and happy. Your situations, your emotions in your life do not dictate your faith in your life. It does not. So some of us are good at living happy with Jesus, and now some of us get to learn how to live sad with Jesus. If you can live happy with Jesus, then you can live sad with Jesus. Here's the commonality in it: with Jesus. See, you're going to have emotions in your life. You're going to have moments where you are happy about situations. You are going to have moments that you are sad about situations. You're going to have moments where you're upset, you're hurt, you're angry, you're frustrated. You're going to have emotions, but do you do them with Jesus? Does Jesus go with you? Do you do it in Him? Do you pay your bills with Jesus? Do you go to the gym with Jesus? Do you have that argument with Jesus? Do you work with Jesus? Are you sad with Jesus? Are you happy with Jesus? Are you frustrated with Jesus? Because the difference is when you take Jesus with Him, you begin to learn what love looks like on a daily basis, and you begin to let the power and control of those emotions go, and you are able to operate in perfect love when you let go of those emotions. I'm going to tell you what, your sad ends a lot sooner when it's with Jesus. Amen? Jesus taught us that lesson when He heard Lazarus died. It says He wept. Clearly, Jesus was sad to hear his friend had died, right? This is the same Jesus who was going to go use dynamite power and bring him back from the dead, who went over the tomb and said, "Lazarus, come forth." But a little bit ago was sad that Jesus had heard his friend had died. So he was sad to hear that his friend was gone. See, you can have emotions. The difference is whether or not you give those emotions the control. You can be sad. Jesus was sad his friend was gone, but He said, "That's okay. I'm sad about it, but I'm with Jesus. And I'm going to go over there and I'm going to use the power and not fear, and I'm going to raise that man from the dead, and I'm going to operate in power and love and a sound mind. I know who I am, and I will not give control to sadness." Amen? That's the key to living outside of emotional control, is when we learn to live with Jesus, that makes our lives full and rich through sadness and through happy times. And there's always going to be struggle. And there's always going to be happy. There's always going to be joy. Some of you guys, your problem is not you're going through a sad time. I'm not speaking to you. Some of you guys, your problem is you're going through a happy time. You're going through a time where everything's good. And it's really easy. Hear me here. It's really easy to forget it, to go with Jesus when everything's good. Man, the second something goes wrong, right, we start crying out, oh, Lord, help me. It went bad. Jesus, save me, right? 15 minutes ago when everything looked good, it was, I did good today. I don't know if you saw, but I killed it at work yesterday. They're going to promote me because I am smart. I am talented. I am good looking, right? And the boss comes in and says, you screwed up on that paperwork. We don't know what we're going to do. Jesus, help me. I need you, Lord. I'm so sad. Be with me. Some of us, our problem is we don't take him with us during the happy moment. We're not very good at being with Jesus in the happy. Okay? And the problem is that when we turn to him, he hasn't been with us the whole time, so the sad moment is fleeting. We don't have any roots of Jesus with us, and we can't seem to break out of sad. So then we give into sad, and sad turns to hurt. Hurt turns to bitterness. Bitterness turns to anxiety. Anxiety turns into stress, and stress turns into fear. And fear is the root of it all. Okay, fear is the root of it all. Once fear grabs you, it locks your body up and robs your spirit of the opportunity to win. It does. When we simply abide with Jesus, we surrender control to our spirit. Emotions don't have us. 1 Corinthians 13:4-7 says this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Let me ask you something today. You've heard that scripture before, and I know you have, and I talk about it a lot. I call it stupid love, right? It always hopes, it always believes, it always trusts. Even in the face of every piece of circumstance that counts against it. It says, no, I choose to love. But you don't know what that person did to you. I choose to love. You don't know what they said about you behind your back. I choose to love, right? We call it stupid love, okay? But here's the thing I want to ask you. If you are rooted in fear, there's a simple way to find out, okay? We're going to take a test in this moment, a spiritual test. There's a simple way to find out if you have allowed fear into your heart and anywhere in your life that maybe you don't even know about. It's to go through this list and ask yourself the question, is that the way I love? Has love been perfected in me? Or am I still a work in progress? We're going to go through that list very quickly, but I'm going to tell you this right now. I went through it and I asked myself that question. Do I love that way? Has love been perfected in me? You know what the answer is? No. No. I'm not there yet. Some people have asked me, how come I don't preach more on Revelations and talk about signs and all of these things that are coming? And people come and they ask me when Jesus is going to come back and when I think that. And I stop them. I say, man, that's all really great. It's part of the Bible. I don't dismiss it. I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form. I just haven't figured out love yet. I'm not ready to tackle stuff that's coming that I don't know about. I know a little bit about it. I read a little bit about it, but I don't preach on it yet because I'm still trying to get the love part down. And if I can't get basic number one, the most important thing, what business do I have trying to tell you when Jesus is coming back? Let me get the love thing down first. Let me love you so that no matter when he comes back, I'll be in eternity with you. I'm more worried about where we're going to spend eternity, not how soon we're going to get there. Love is patient. Are you patient? Love is kind. Are you kind? It does not envy. Do you envy this morning? It does not boast. It is not proud. Has pride swelled up in you? It does not dishonor others. It is not disrespectful to people. It does not diminish them and make them feel small. Do you do that? It is not self-seeking. Is your agenda for you and what brings you happiness? It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. Do you keep a record? When you see that person, do you think, I don't care what they did, I still love them? Or are you still saying, I can't. You don't know what they did. I'm not saying that love requires you to engage that person and be in a relationship with that person and to let go of everything and just throw yourself into a bad situation and a bad atmosphere over and over again. That's not what love does. Love doesn't say, let's be best friends again. But what love says is, I'm just not going to hold that against you. There's wisdom. Wisdom says, best not to be in that atmosphere. Love says, I don't care. I'm not going to hold it against them. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Are you a person that loves the truth, even when the truth hurts? Even when that person that loves you tells you the truth and you don't want to hear the truth, are you willing to hear the truth, even if it means that you messed up or you hurt someone or you did wrong? Are you willing to be corrected? If you can't hear correction, you live in fear. It always protects. Do you protect? Always trusts. It always hopes. See, there are a lot of times that people will let you down, right? It happens all the time. People will let you down. The question is, even in those dark moments where someone has let you down, do you have hope? Have you lost your hope? When you lose hope, hear me here, is prophetic and profound for somebody today. When you lose hope, you empty something out of you. And the human spirit is required to stay full. It has to keep its tank topped off. When you lose hope, something must replace it. When you empty hope from your life, fear will fill it up. Drugs will fill it up. Alcohol will fill it up. Bitterness will fill it up. Entertainment will fill it up. Other things that rob your life of a future will begin to fill it up. Anger, all the other things will come into your life and rob your life of a future because you have lost the hope of a future. And when you give up hope, you're giving up the thing that manifests your future. So you've given yourself over to fear, and fear will fill up the rest of you with other things that are destructive to your life. So love always hopes because it realizes that in hope, there is hope. That in hope, there is a future for you. And here's the greatest thing. It always perseveres. It only says that for one reason. Because there's always a reason not to trust. There's always a reason not to hope. There's always a reason not to persevere. There's always a reason not to overcome. If you are going through something this morning, love wants to overcome. The reason why you're going through it is so it can be overcome. So that love can show itself as a perseverer. There would be no reason to hope if everything was perfect. Right? Your trial, your situation is there to show how much bigger love can be in your life. So if you answer yes to those questions, I live that way, great. But if you answer no to any of those, then that means that somewhere inside you is a root of fear. Fear has grabbed you somewhere in some area of your life. And I don't know if that's in your marriage, in your job, in your current situation. I don't know if that's in the economic crisis. I don't know if that's in the oil industry. I don't know if that's, you're a teacher and you're going through all the stuff right now in our state. Or you watch Fox News or CNN or MSC every week, and you watch and you see our politicians and you see our nation and you see the back and forth and the teeter-tottering, and you worry about our future. And you've allowed fear to creep in and rob you of hope. See, it's okay to be involved until fear takes over. And then you shouldn't be. Because you have no sound mind to contribute when you are afraid of something. And so the best advice I can give you is, when you are afraid, fall on your knees and allow the power of Jesus to live inside of you. Because God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And if that doesn't seem to work, go grab somebody else that's not afraid of your situation. Because they still have a sound mind to speak into your life. They still have a sound mind. Do not allow the emotion of fear to rob you of hope, of faith, and of love, and And the greatest of all is love, which is why it should be your first weapon.